On today's Rolston Hockey Exclusive, I am joined by 2010 first round 17th overall pick by the Colorado Avalanche. He had an incredible junior career where he won a U17 gold medal, played in the Canadian Hockey League Top Prospects game, was an OHL champion and first team All-Star for the Owen Sound Attach, in which he had 87 points in 50 games played. He played 13 games in the NHL before going overseas and playing in the KHL and SHL. This guy, let me tell you what, this guy used a curve like nothing that I have ever seen in my entire playing career. I was fortunate enough to play with him in 2014-15 with the Cleveland Monsters. Used to snap it back to him a few times on face-off, which he would go bar down usually. He's currently the assistant coach and GM for the Owen Sound Attach of the Ontario Hockey League. And for those that don't know, he's also training Justin Bieber for a charity shootout with his buddy Jordan Binnington. It's great to see this guy doing so well after everything that he went through. Great to catch up with him. Joey Hishon. What's going on, man?
Not much, not much. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Whereabouts are you right now?
I'm in Stratford, Ontario, my hometown where I grew up. Just trying to stay busy here, trying to stay safe in quarantine here. Well, not quarantine, in isolation. Taking my dog for about 35 walks a day, and other than that, just trying to stay busy.
Are you obviously all the rinks are closed, and have you been able to do anything with any type of training hockey related?
Yeah, I've been doing some video evaluation stuff with different guys, which has been nice to kind of dive into and stay busy that way, stay involved in hockey. But yeah, all the rinks are closed. I mean, you're not even really allowed to go out and do anything, even if you wanted to train somebody at a tennis court or something like that. It's really not supposed to happen. So yeah, just the the video evaluation stuff, and that's about it.
Um, so let's talk about your career here a little bit. You said you're from Stratford. Is that where you grew up playing?
Yeah. So actually, kind of a unique story. I played in Stratford my entire life. It's a double A hockey center, so no triple A hockey here. Never played triple A. Was drafted out of double A. So yeah, I've been in Stratford my entire life. Me and my wife love it here. It's a beautiful city with really good restaurants, which is nice. The Stratford Festival is pretty unique, and a lot of tourists come to Stratford for that. So it's a great place to live.
So growing up, you said you played double A your entire basically youth hockey. How was that for you? Was that something that, when you were young, were you like, I got to move, I got to make a jump to triple A, or were you just kind of, working on your own individual game and believing in the process of, if I'm good enough, things will work out how they should and as they did?
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly there. I was always kind of I mean, my dad always said, if you're good enough, they'll find you. You don't need to go play AAA. You don't need to move to Toronto or go to a big center or anything like that. And my parents committed so much to me and my hockey career. My dad worked at the arena here in Stratford, so we were always busy. I mean, I could skate anytime I wanted, which I think was incredible for my development. My mom also worked here in Stratford, so it was really hard. Here in Perth was my AAA center, and at that time I was out of Goderich, Ontario, so about an hour from Stratford, and to be driving back and forth 3-4 times a week just wasn't feasible for my family at the time. So I stuck with it in Stratford. Like you said, I just trusted the process, and then yeah, I was fortunate enough to play junior B games for my Stratford hometown team as a 15-year-old, and then was drafted out of double A. So it was really cool. It all worked out for me. I definitely think if you have the ability and you can play triple A, it's the highest level of hockey, and you should pursue that. But for me, it wasn't, and it fortunately worked out.
You said you had a lot of access to the ice at that time. When you were growing up, were you involved in a lot of camps? What was your kind of upbringing in your, training process? So much has changed over the years with, what we grew up used to. It was, you skate when you can, you practice, you're having fun, and then, you go play other sports or whatever you're doing for that time being. But, what were you doing, during those days?
Yeah, it completely different than nowadays. I think
Yeah.
kids are so, I mean, hockey focused. If hockey's their
Yep.
sport, that's pretty much all they do. And for me back then, it was completely different. I played soccer, I played baseball, I golfed a ton. I'm obsessed with golf, and I always have been. That was something I always did. My family was right into a sport called drag racing. I don't know if you guys know a lot about it down in the States, but we were right into that on weekends. So and honestly, I think one of the biggest things is playing road hockey. That's
Yep.
something we did nonstop. Me and my buddies would get together and play road hockey almost every day of the week. And say what you want about it, I think you learn so much, and it really
Absolutely.
develops your hockey sense. I think that's something that's so overlooked now with skill development is hockey sense, and by playing road hockey and learning how to win and manipulate people that are trying to take the ball from you. Playing those games, those small area games that are not sanctioned. I think it was so big for my development. And being from a small town, we didn't even really have ice in any of the rinks in the summers, and that's all we did. So we played a ton of sports, but like you said, absolutely no uh, skill training
Right.
whatsoever. It was just play other sports, do other things, and play as much road hockey as you possibly could.
I was, talking with Cam Fowler the other day, and we were talking about growing up, and we both believe that we learned almost, so much from when we were younger, just playing shinny in the backyard, or like you said, road hockey, or those unsanctioned games where there's, really no structure to it, but you're working on things and learning, different situations where you really don't get a chance to work on those in a structured practice. So I think that stuff's so beneficial. So you go from Double A, you're drafted in, I believe, 2007 to the Owen Sound Attack. Talk about that experience. Was that something that you were expecting, hoping? Did you think that you were on their radar, and kind of the process of that?
Yeah, I was actually one of those little rats that was trying to manipulate the draft and get to Kitchener or London. But Owen Sound stepped up and just took me. Mike Futa, who's now with the LA Kings, he's the assistant general manager there. He drafted me against my wishes. Like I said, I was trying to get to Kitchener and London, but um, literally the best thing that ever happened for my hockey career was going to Owen Sound. Like we mentioned, I came out of Double A hockey, so I knew right away it was going to be a huge jump for me to go from obviously playing Double A to playing in the OHL. But yeah, I went into a situation where we were a bad team, and I got to play a ton. And the coach there, he's passed away now. His name was Mark Reeds. He moved on to coach the Ottawa Senators in the NHL as an assistant. He was such an instrumental coach, and I mean he was so big for me, not only in the game of hockey but in my life, and going there to play for him in Owen Sound. He was one of those old school guys that, I mean, he loved stick work, he loved skill. So for me, it was such an incredible situation, and so thankful that Mike Futa made that decision, and Dale DeGray was able to get me to sign a contract to play there, because without that organization and without so being in Owen Sound was such a good experience for me. And obviously now I work for the team, so I'd highly recommend it for any of your American prospects that want to come play for me down here.
We had some good battles when I was playing for the Spitfires. You were with Owen Sound. You were always, the thing that I admired about you was, at whatever stage, size used to be such, a focus point where people are, you got to be this, you got to be that. And, you were just a player that, maybe you weren't the biggest, but, I know a lot of guys have said, once you put that helmet on and you were on the ice, I mean, it was like you were 6'5" with a stick that was, 8 feet long, slashing people and around the throat. You had me a couple times. I know you did for sure. But no, we had some good battles and some good times. But you actually beat us the year that you guys went to the 2010-11 when you guys won the OHL. You beat us in the conference finals, and then you guys went on to beat Mississauga in the OHL finals. Which leads me. I mean, an incredible junior career. You were highly touted, and were setting yourself up for the next step in your playing career. And you went to the Memorial Cup. And for anybody that doesn't know the story, or it's hasn't read up on Joey Hishon, his career, He took an unbelievable shot to the head at the Memorial Cup, and basically put his career on pause for a little bit there. If you want to touch on that and just kind of some of the stuff that you went through, which I think it's an unbelievable story to see what you went through to, your how you got to getting to the NHL and now what you're doing. But at that time, how was that for you mentally?
Um, okay, before I touch on that, I want to touch on us playing against each other real quick. So, so yes, yeah, and I remember playing against you in that series. That series was unbelievable. I think it was only 5 games, or was it 6 games we beat you in?
I think it was 6 games, but that fifth game it turned into a little bit of a gong show at the end. And I remember Cassian took a run at someone, and he got suspended for game 6. And it was one of those where whoever was going to win that automatically had a bid to the Memorial Cup. And Windsor, we had gone. I was a part of the second year that they won it, but they were basically looking to go for a three-peat to the Memorial Cup. So whoever won our conference was going.
Yeah, yeah. So what I remember is, like you said, Cassian went crazy and tried to kill Jesse Blacker. So he got suspended for game 6, which was obviously unbelievable for us. But you know what I remember most about that series was you played on Windsor's checking line with, I think, I want to say Johnson or something like that. I can't remember. Can't remember
I,
who it
I was
was.
always matched up, so I played center actually for the most part my second year in Windsor, and I usually got matched up against guys like you, where it was if I shut down their line, we most nights had an opportunity to win. If their top line is in plus and we're just even, then we have a good chance.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what I remember about it. I think you did a really good job in that series playing against me. But
Obviously,
what I
not good
remember,
enough, Joe.
but what I remember most is 6 games in a row. I never won a single face-off. I've never done that before in my life. I've never played against a face-off guy like you before.
Yeah, we it took some pride in that for sure, but I always got excited, going up against guys like you or whoever it may have been during that time. And I think those are very important roles to have. Every team has to have your identity, and guys have to know their place. And for me, at that time in my career, it was I took pride in if I can shut down one of the best players in the league, we have a chance of being successful. So obviously that didn't happen, but you guys went on to win the OHL that year and go to the Memorial Cup. Talk about just an unbelievable experience that entire tournament is.
Yeah, yeah, and we can get back to the concussion stuff as well. So for me, it was an incredible run through the whole OHL playoffs. We had a great series, went 7 games in overtime in the final against Mississauga. We were able to beat them, and then obviously off to the Memorial Cup. In the first game, we played Kootenay, and that's when I got the pretty bad concussion, and I didn't play hockey for 22 months after that. So yeah, it was a very, very difficult time in my life. It's really hard to explain to people. I know you'll understand it because you've played, but to people that haven't played, when that's all you do, you sink your teeth into hockey every minute of every single day, and you're completely focused on it. And then you have an injury, and the pulled completely away from you. So hard to continue and have a normal life when you're not playing hockey anymore. You
Right.
identify as a hockey player. That's all you've ever been. So it was very challenging for me. I always had in the back of my mind that I would be able to play again, but there was definitely some real tough times where I didn't think I would, and believed for small amounts of time that I wouldn't be able to,
Right.
until I was put in touch with the proper people and started to get better and was able to come back and have a little bit of a career after. So super thankful for all that, but yeah, a very difficult time in my life.
So, to go back a little bit here, you had a late birthday. So we are both 91 birth years, but you had a late birthday. So you fell into the 2010 draft. So you were drafted after your third year in the OHL by the Colorado Avalanche. So this was your last year in the OHL that you guys won the OHL, and you got hit in the Mem Cup. The concussion happened. So you were your mindset at that time had to have been, I got a chance at winning the Mem Cup, leaving my junior career on a high note, and starting my professional career, you know, feeling pretty good, successful, and going in like, this is what I'm meant to do. That injury happens, and basically you go into your first 2 years pro, and you play. I believe your first year you didn't play a single game, and your second year you played nine. Mentally, you move to Colorado. You're sent to Cleveland to play in the AHL, and you're bouncing around. Basically, I have to imagine that at that time you're not even necessarily thinking about hockey in a sense. You're thinking, "Am I going to have a normal life?" What were those days like?
Yeah, yeah, it was really hard, and like I said, I didn't know if I would be able to play again. So I was flying all over the place, seeing different doctors, doctors in Atlanta, doctors in Ohio. I was all over Canada and Toronto, seeing different doctors. I was in Montreal, and no one really had definitive answers, which was probably the toughest part. And at the same time, I wanted to try and keep playing hockey.
Right.
So it was a pretty complicated situation. I was finally put in touch with a guy in Toronto named Daniel Gallucci, who had the connection of Dr. Ted Carrick, and ironically, Sidney Crosby was going through concussion stuff at the same time, and he had gone to Dr. Carrick and started to get better, was able to come back and play. So I was really excited to see him. Got in touch with him, and yeah, was there. I was there for 21 days, nonstop, doing different eye movement, balance stuff, spinning in it was called the gyro stim concussion treatment or brain rehab machine, and finally started to get better and was able to get back on track and train and get back in the gym, back on the ice, and start to at least pursue a professional career again.
So, for those that don't know, growing up, you played with Ryan O'Reilly. Was he from your hometown or just, local hockey community?
Yeah, just local hockey community. He was
Okay.
down the road, Varna, Ontario, but really
Okay.
close.
So obviously, I mean, his career speaks for itself, but for those that haven't seen, there's some clips on YouTube where you can look at his training and what he does, but specifically with his dad, um, and you know, I believe his name is Brian, correct?
Yep, that's right.
So talk about your experience with Brian O'Reilly. I mean, again, for those that don't know, he's an unbelievable guy when it comes to training and different types of training. And, before we've talked, you and I have had a relationship for a long time, but you've said, multiple times that, if it wasn't for him, you don't know where you would be, not just hockey, but just life in general. Talk about his influence with you as a player and a person.
Yeah, his training first off is extremely unique. You do things, you're on a
Right.
balance beam. It's all about being in your core and staying strong inside your core while doing all these crazy different things. So it was incredible for me, for my hand-eye coordination, for my balance, for different things like that. I think it was not many people still to this day. I don't think anyone's really doing it other than him. You'd be on a balance beam, juggling, doing different things, and he'd be asking you math questions all at the same time. So getting different areas of your brain to activate, and absolutely incredible training. And then also on the other side of that, he's a mental coach as well. That I mean, he gets you to kind of self-evaluate, which I don't think any trainer in my entire life has ever been able to do that the way he does. And people ask, like, how does he motivate you? But it's just the questions he asks and the things he says to you. It's not about motivation whatsoever. He firmly believes that you can't be motivated unless you motivate yourself. It has to come from within. He calls it internal psychology. And without him, especially throughout my concussion rehab and trying to get back to playing again, without him having him there to push me and help me with that internal side of it and getting me to self motivate, I don't know where I'd be today. And I mean, I get a little bit emotional when I talk about it because it's so, I mean, it was just such a tough time for me, and to be where I was and have him help me and get me to where I am now, and get me back playing again, and being able to talk about so many things that are so much bigger than hockey.
Right.
Being able to go through those things with him was just huge for me.
I mean, that's incredible. Like you said, I mean, his training, it's so different and unique. And, for you personally, having that relationship with him and, how he was able to, get you back on track, not just as a hockey player, but, as a person, more importantly. I mean, it's incredible. So we got together playing in Cleveland in 2014-15. But prior to that, the year before, so it would have been the 13-14 season. Um, you went through everything with your concussions. You had to prove yourself all over again. You had to step into an AHL league, which, is a great league. And, you really hadn't had much experience. And you get called up on April 7th to the Colorado Avalanche. And that was, or you got called up before that, sorry, but that was when, you scored your first NHL game against the Nashville Predators. I can't even describe or can't even imagine the type of emotions and feelings you must have had, not just playing in the NHL, but I mean, scoring that goal, it must have kind of solidified everything that you've done. Like, everything I went through led me to this moment. And, no matter what happens from here, I'm at peace with where I am as a person and hockey player.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you said it really good there. When you're a kid, I don't think you envision playing 13 NHL games and then that's it. I think you envision a career, but for everything I had to go through and be able to come back and score a goal in the NHL was an incredible feeling. Just if there's a couple pictures with it, and Ryan O'Reilly is the first guy on the bench after I scored. I'm going through just a crazy experience. So exciting for me. It's actually funny. Dory, my wife, and my parents flew in that morning. So I had been playing with Colorado. I hadn't been on the board yet. Hadn't been on the score sheet. They fly in, and I was able to score a game winner in front of them after they got there. So really crazy experience and a cool story I'll cherish forever.
I get chills just thinking about that. So that was 14, 15, or yeah, the end of 2014. And then in 14-15, you were back in Cleveland playing for the Monsters. That's where, we were finally teammates. We had known each other previously, playing against each other, but, we had some fun there, some good memories. I can remember playing together. I literally, we spoke about this before, but I don't know who it was against. There was one game where we were in the offensive zone on the left dot. You lined up, right behind me, maybe 3 feet to the right as a left shot. And I think I won, I want to say 4 or 5 faceoffs in a row. And there must have been 3 or 4 or centermen that came in. And everyone, you're just ripping it, shot, whistle. And we'd look at each other, start laughing and joking around. But those are just some fun memories I have.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember I remember setting up behind you and you just kept snapping it back right on my tape and I was just teeing off one-timers. And you're right, it was 4 or 5 in a row. And I think after the second one, you told me to, because you were lining me up. No, 2 inches more farther this way. So it was right in my wheelhouse every time. Like I said earlier, you're the best face-off guy I ever played with in my career. But yeah, I can remember looking at you after the second one and being like again, like they know what's coming, and you're like, yeah, but they ain't stopping it. You just kept lining me up in the same spot. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to bury for you there, but yeah,
Yeah.
I'll always remember that 4 or 5 one-timers from the top of the circle off face-offs in a row. That was pretty fun to watch and be a
Those
part
are
of.
some good days. So you finish out your career over in the States, and you end up going playing in the KHL and in the SHL for a year or two. Specifically in the KHL, you had an opportunity to play against a guy by the name of Pavel Datsyuk, who had a pretty decent career. Just I know for myself, he was always a guy I looked up to. I mean, just an unbelievable player, especially being from Detroit personally. But I saw a picture of you the other day at a face-off against him. Is that something that you kind of had a moment where, holy cow, this is Pavel Datsyuk?
Yeah, it was really cool. Anytime we got to play against St. Petersburg, it was always they were like our biggest rival in the KHL. I was in Jokerit, a Finnish team. They were in St. Petersburg, Russia, so the border is pretty close from Helsinki to St. Petersburg. Probably the closest team geographically in the entire KHL for us. So we had some really good battles against them. Obviously, they had some pretty elite players, Datsuk, Kovalchuk. So anytime we got to play them, we'd always get up for those games. But I can remember an exhibition game we played against them. Obviously, I'm pretty sure they beat us as they usually did. But after the game, I went outside. It was still pretty nice in Finland. The weather was still pretty good, and I went outside. My friend Mikko Rantanen hadn't been to North America yet. Well, sorry, he played with me in San Antonio,
Yeah.
but he was still in Finland. He hadn't reported to Colorado for training camp yet. So I went outside to meet him. And as I was walking outside, Datsuk and Kovalchuk were doing hill sprints and plyometric jumps after the game in exhibition. So I mean, I think it's pretty obvious why the best players in the world are the best. They usually put in more work than anyone else. I think a lot of people think there's secrets to getting better, but I mean, there's absolutely no secret whatsoever. Whoever puts in the most work. You look at a guy like that; he's so accomplished, had such an incredible career. Both of those guys, obviously, and they're still playing, and they're putting in more work than anybody else. They're out there by themselves after an exhibition game in Finland, putting in all this extra work and making sure they're in the best possible condition they can be to start the season.
So after those 2 years, you ended up retiring after a great career in 2017-18 after that season. And at that time, like a lot of hockey players, you're trying to figure out what the next phase, what the next chapter is in our life. You got into basically being a regional scout and helping with the skill development with the Owen Sound Attach of the OHL. Talk about your relationship with them and getting involved. Now currently this past year, you're assistant GM and assistant coach, but was that something that you knew you wanted to always be in hockey in some way, or did you have a couple moments after retiring where, hey, you know what, I might go try out this job, see if I want to have a career in something totally different?
Yeah, I think when I initially made the decision that I was going to call it quits, I didn't know what I was going to do, and I had some really tough days thinking about that. I wake up in the morning like, what am I going to do today? So what I ended up doing, my cousin was working for a paving company actually, and they needed somebody. So I went and worked for 6 weeks for a paving company. Um, it was the hardest work I've ever done in my entire life, and that includes the hardest workouts I've ever done in my life. Not even close compared to working for the paving company. Long days. And I don't know, 6:37 in the morning. You don't get home till 8:30 at night, and then you got to wake up the next morning and go do it all over again. And I mean, I have so much respect for guys that or people that do that on a consistent basis. I mean, it was so huge for me in learning that I wanted to stay with hockey because looking at that and realizing how hard that work was, it was probably the best thing I ever did because it really pushed me to start Skills Corp and pursue hockey on the other side of the game. And that's when I contacted Dale DeGray and Owen Sound. We started to have some conversations. Dale's the general manager in Owen Sound. They brought me on as, like you said, I was part of the skill development staff as well as I would scout for them. That season, later in that season, their head coach ended up getting fired, and one of the assistants moved up to be the head coach, and I was brought in as the assistant coach, assistant general manager, and that's still where I currently am. And it was, I mean, Dale said to me, there's one thing I have to say. Dale said to me, the easiest thing in hockey is to play. And I've never realized how true that really is. Because once you retire and see how much work's put in on the other side of it, coaches are at the rink for so many hours. And I don't think a lot of guys that are playing realize how much time they put in to try and help you get better. But now being on the other side of it and looking back, Dale was so right when he said that, because when you play, all you do is worry about yourself. You worry about your own preparation, getting to the rink and helping your team win as best you possibly can, but you're not worried about 24 other guys getting them prepared. And as a coach, you have to worry about all that. So it's been a huge adjustment for me and a challenge, but it's been a ton of fun.
You just touched on that lightly, but with everything that you've had going on with Owen Sound, you also started your own company called Skills Corp. You're training a bunch of kids, NHL players, AHL, youth players, basically covering the whole spectrum. Talk about kind of how you got involved in that. I know you and I have had long conversations, just, with what I'm doing, working with Brian Ralston, being at the, Rolston Hockey Academy, and just, seeing the development of kids in today's game compared to where we were. We talk again at length about what's important, what's going to help them get to the next level, or what's going to help them, become the most successful player that they personally can with, their God-given potential. What are some of the things at your, skills corp that you really emphasize on and that you personally find important?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, the problem with skill development right now is there's so many skills coaches out there uh, I don't know, they're training kids just to do tricks. So it's like tricks don't work in a game.
Right.
As you move up higher levels, I mean, they don't work anymore. Toe dragging and flipping the puck in the air over someone's stick and jumping over a pile, like it just doesn't work anymore. It doesn't happen.
Right.
So I feel like if you can really emphasize the small things in the game that happen a ton. So, I mean, whether it's protecting the puck and as you're protecting the puck, keeping the puck in a good position so you're able to make the play as you're protecting it, whether it's taking pucks off the wall and again, getting that puck into a good position to make a play as soon as you get that puck off the wall. I think those are small things that happen um, thousands of times throughout a hockey season that are really, really going to help kids produce more, get better, and make plays easier. For me, that's a huge issue right now in the skill development world. I really do think it's better to play road hockey than it is to go flip pucks over sticks and do all these fancy tricks. Um, sure, it looks cool on Instagram and maybe you'll get a lot of likes and a lot of attention, but the things that are going to really make you better are the things that happen consistently throughout a game. And I mean, for guys that really haven't played the game but can do tricks, I just don't see the benefit in it. And sure, if kids are having fun with it and they're in their backyard, they're outside, that's great. But if you want to get better as a player, you got to work on things that sometimes they look simple, but if you work on them for an hour, you got 23 hours to screw around and do whatever you want. And it's only
Right.
going to help you so much more when you get back to playing games.
Yep.
That's the biggest thing for me right now in the skill development world.
I mean, I think you said it perfectly, and that's something that we've talked to at length. I almost, you know, we're both skill coaches, but I almost like to put myself in a category of, I'm a game situational training or development coach, where, there are skill coaches and there's stick handling coaches, and those guys are unbelievable at what they do. But where I like to, separate myself, or maybe you do as well, is, everything that we do tends to be game related. When we work on things, it's, we're doing this for a reason. It's, your head's here and it should be placed over your shoulder. By just moving it 45 degrees, if you're skating up ice, instead you can just see straight ahead. But if you turn your head 45 degrees, now you can see the entire ice. And there's little things like that that I think are so important. And like you said, the drills that are, look fancy and great, sure, you're going to do those here and there, and that's fine and that's great. But it all gets back to the fundamentals, the details, the things that you grew up learning when you were a kid, which guys that I've played with, that I have relationships with, that are in the NHL, that I'm training, that you're training, a guy like Ryan O'Reilly that you work with on a day-to-day basis. um, you know I don't think you're telling him to flip a puck over, hop over a stick and pick it up, spin around and score. Now if he does, I mean maybe that's unbelievable, but I'm sure he comes to you and says, here's a list of what I need to get better at. And they're not simple things, but they're drills that everybody can do at any level.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, it's hockey sense. You're developing hockey sense and making situations that happen over and over again easier. And it's really as simple as that for me. So yeah, like you said, I think you just did a great job explaining it yourself. And the tricks and all these things that people try and do and teach, they don't happen. Why would you work on something that happens one every 75 games when you can
Right.
work on something that happens 75 times a game?
Right.
And that's kind of what I try and preach when I'm doing my skill stuff. And obviously there's times to, have fun and screw around a little
For
bit. But
sure.
if you really want to get better, you got to work on those things that happen over and over and over again.
Right. And that's great stuff. And I think it's important, you know, as we're getting into this side of hockey, and like you said, the coaching. I mean, that was so beautifully said about it. You know, it's almost easy to be a hockey player because all you got to worry about is yourself and you know, preparing and being the best that you can for your team and your teammates. But you don't see all the behind the scenes work that goes in. And you know, I know you're a guy, I'm a guy where, you know, during the hockey season when it is on, you know, you catch a 7 o'clock game and you watch the West Coast game at 10, and you know, you're hockey minded guys, and that's the stuff that I always thought, you know, when I'm done playing, I always personally believed I'm going to have almost more of a passion for the coaching and teaching side of it, because I just love watching games and seeing what these players did and what those players do. And you know, that's something I think that you've always done your whole career, and especially now with what you're doing, you know, you're helping teach these kids. You know, I don't think there's a right or a wrong way in a sense. I mean, there is a wrong way, but I think how what you're teaching up there, it's definitely you know, going to lead to good things and, you know, developing players. I mean, there's the word development, I think, is thrown around so much. And you know, what is development? I mean, is it, oh, he got better, he scored more goals this year, or is it, you know, I like to think I want to give a 7, 8, 9 year old the proper tools that when they're 16, 17, 18, that they don't even think twice about it. Whether it's where they are on the ice, how they attack a zone, finding the lanes, where there's space. It's just they've been taught growing up that when they get to the level of, okay, now it's their turn to make this, you know, their career and run with hockey, that they don't, it's second nature to them. And you know, I think that's something that you're teaching, and it's very important. Moving on from that, there's a guy named Justin Bieber. He's pretty well known.
He's got a few
So
followers on Instagram.
he's got a couple. He's pretty famous. Sings a couple songs. So going back to your Owen Sound days, Jordan Binnington was the goalie there, I believe, right? Yes.
Yep.
And
He was.
so for those who don't know, Jordan Binnington sent out a tweet or an Instagram, you know, challenging basically Justin Bieber to a shootout and a 10 shot. Hey, if you can score on me, we'll do a donation to a charity and we'll make it into a fundraiser. You know, a great thing to do. You're from Stratford, and I think there's one thing about whoever it is in the world, whether you're a huge celebrity, you know, you can do anything you want. If you have a passion for something, you want to be the best at it. And you know, the guy Justin Bieber loves hockey. Grew up. If you look online or anything, he has a passion for it. So, how did you get connected with him? In, you know, going out there a few times and, you know, working with him and trying to help him get ready for this shootout against your buddy?
Yeah. So we first got connected. Like you said, we're both from Stratford. We first connected when he was in Helsinki, Finland, when I was playing in the KHL there. He was doing a concert in Helsinki. So our team was on the road in Russia, but I set him up to skate with our general manager. General manager there was Yari Curry. So I set him up to skate with Yari Curry. We kind of lost touch after that, and then out of nowhere, one day this year, he just sent me a message on Instagram and said, "What's going on? Where are you at?" And I was like, what's going on here? Like, is this real? Is this fake? I didn't know I didn't know what was going on, but we ended up talking, had some good conversations on the phone. And
You're
then,
from the same
yeah,
hometown, correct?
yeah, that's right. We're
Okay.
both from
Okay.
Stratford. So he started flying me out LA to New York City, or kind of wherever he was to do some training on off days that I had. And yeah, like you said, if you're passionate about something, you want to be the best at it. He's definitely passionate about hockey. He absolutely loves the game. Loves the Toronto Maple Leafs, the best team in the NHL. I completely agree with him there. And yeah, he's looking to get better and score one on banner. So he's doing everything he can.
So, I mean, how are his skills? I mean, you know, have a chance here? I mean, I was talking to my buddy Jack Campbell, and he was saying it's always easier to play up, if that makes sense. Like, you know, if it's easier to elevate your game than to, you know, play down in a sense. And you know, he said if you get 10 shots and you're not used to that speed of a puck coming at you, you know, there's a chance. So I'm curious to know, you know, what you think.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I think I think Benner's in a tough spot because he's actually got pretty good hands. Like plain and simple. I work with a ton of guys, and his hands are actually not bad. Like he's able to pull some stuff off that you're like, wow, I didn't expect him to be able
Yeah.
to do that. So yeah, I think there's a chance. Like you said, he's got 10 shots, and all he's got to do is score one, and he wins. So I definitely think there's a chance. We're working on his shot right now. His shot needs a little bit of work, but his hands are definitely pretty good.
That's incredible, man. And then at the end of the day, it's for a good cause, and that's all that matters. But um, yeah, you're with the Beebs. It's got to be pretty fun for you. But um, well, that's about all I have. I think we touched on some really good stuff. Again, your career is a great story. Everything that you went through, the ups and downs, and getting to the NHL, getting that goal, and now everything that you're doing with Owen Sound, with your company Skills Corp, and the player development, which we talk about at length all the time. And I can't thank you enough for joining me and doing this. It's great to see you, man.
Yeah, you too, Kenny. And hey, I've watched everything you've done so far. I've seen you're building your own Instagram, KR Hockey Development. I think you're doing a great job there. And these interviews, I've watched them all. I know you got a great list of more to come. So it's been fun to watch. You're doing a great job, and thanks for having me.
Appreciate it, Hish.